I walked through my front door after 3 weeks in Ohio to find a woman I'd never met sitting at my kitchen table, eating breakfast off my late wife's china. She looked up at me like I was the intruder. Before I could say a word, my son's fiancée Brianna appeared from the hallway, all smiles, and said, "Oh, Dad, you're back early. Don't worry, Mom and Dad are settled in now. We're taking care of you from here on out. This is permanent." I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just stood there in my own doorway, suitcase in hand, and thought to myself, this girl has made the biggest mistake of her life. But before I tell you what happened next, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I'm sharing this story because sometimes the people who claim to care about you the most are the ones you need to watch the closest. Now, let me take you back to how this whole mess started. My name is Walter Brennan. Not the actor, though I've heard every joke about it you can imagine. I'm 68 years old, retired from the Phoenix Fire Department after 32 years of service. Spent the last 8 of those as a captain at Station 47 before my knees finally convinced me it was time to hang up the helmet. I live in a 4-bedroom house in Scottsdale, Arizona. Nothing too fancy, but it's got a nice backyard with a view of the McDowell Mountains, a pool I barely use anymore, and enough space for the life my wife Helen and I built together over 41 years of marriage. Helen passed 4 years ago. Breast cancer. She fought it hard for 2 years, and I was right there beside her every step of the way. When she finally let go, holding my hand in that hospice bed, something inside me went quiet too. The house felt different after that. Too big. Too empty. Every room held a memory that made my chest tight. Her sewing room upstairs still had her quilting frame set up, her fabric organized by color the way she liked it. I couldn't bring myself to change anything in there. It was like keeping a small piece of her alive. My son Kevin is 32 now. He was always a sensitive kid, maybe too sensitive for his own good. Took his mother's death hard. Harder than me, in some ways, because he didn't know how to process it. He'd call me late at night sometimes, just wanting to talk about nothing. I think he was lonely. We both were. Then about a year ago, he met Brianna. She was 29, worked in real estate, drove a white BMW that was always spotless. Kevin brought her to Sunday dinner at my place, and I tried to be welcoming. Helen always said I could be too protective of Kevin, that I needed to let him make his own choices. So I smiled and asked about her job and complimented her earrings, even though something about her felt off to me. It was the way she looked at my house. Not admiring it, but assessing it. Like she was calculating square footage and property values in her head. And the way she touched things, running her fingers along the granite countertops, commenting on how much natural light the living room got. Real estate habit, maybe. Or maybe something else. Kevin proposed 6 months ago. He called me all excited, and I told him I was happy for him, which was mostly true. I wanted my son to find love. I wanted him to build a life with someone the way I had with Helen. But Brianna made me uneasy in ways I couldn't quite articulate. 3 months ago, Kevin asked me for a favor. My brother Ray, who lives in Columbus, had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. The surgery went fine, but he needed help during recovery. His wife had passed years before, and his kids lived out of state. I was the only family close enough to help. "Go, Dad," Kevin said. "Ray needs you. I'll check on the house while you're gone. Water the plants, grab your mail. Don't worry about anything." I hesitated. Something in my gut told me not to leave. But Ray was my brother, and he needed me. Family takes care of family. That's what Helen always believed, and I tried to live by it. I gave Kevin the spare key and the code to my security system. I showed him how to work the pool pump and where I kept the emergency shutoff for the water heater. He wrote everything down like a good son. Brianna was there too, standing in my kitchen, watching. I remember she asked which bedroom had the best view. I left on a Tuesday morning in late October. The flight to Columbus was smooth, and by that evening, I was at Ray's bedside, helping him adjust his pillows and making sure he took his medications on time. For 3 weeks, I focused on my brother. We watched old movies together, played cards when he felt up to it, talked about our parents and the house we grew up in back in Pittsburgh. It was good to reconnect, even under difficult circumstances. I called Kevin every few days to check in. "Everything's fine," he'd say. "House is good. Don't worry about a thing. Brianna says hi." I should have worried. When my flight landed in Phoenix on a Friday afternoon, I felt that familiar relief of coming home. The desert sun was warm on my face as I walked to my truck in the parking garage. The drive to Scottsdale took about 40 minutes, and I spent most of it thinking about how good it would feel to sleep in my own bed again. The first thing I noticed when I pulled into my driveway was the unfamiliar car. A silver sedan with Nevada plates, parked in the spot where I usually put my truck. My mailbox was overflowing despite Kevin's promise to collect it. The lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks. I walked up to my front door and found it unlocked. The smell hit me first when I stepped inside. Cooking odors. Not my cooking, something with heavy spices I didn't recognize. And underneath it, the stale smell of people, of living, of strangers making themselves at home in my space. My living room had been rearranged. My leather recliner, the one Helen bought me for my 60th birthday, had been pushed into a corner to make room for a floral print sofa I'd never seen before. Family photos that had hung on the walls for 20 years were gone, replaced by generic landscape prints. Helen's painting of the mountains, the one she'd made in her art class the year before she got sick, was nowhere to be seen. That's when I walked into the kitchen and found the woman at my table. She was maybe 60 years old, gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a housecoat like she owned the place. She looked up from her scrambled eggs with mild surprise, but no alarm, like I was a neighbor who'd dropped by unannounced. "Oh," she said, "you must be Walter." Before I could respond, Brianna appeared from the hallway that led to the bedrooms. She was wearing yoga pants and one of Kevin's old t-shirts, her hair wet from a shower. My shower. "Oh, Dad, you're back early. Don't worry, Mom and Dad are settled in now. We're taking care of you from here on out. This is permanent." She said it so casually, so matter-of-factly, like she was telling me the weather forecast. "Excuse me?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. Brianna walked over and put her hand on my arm like we were old friends. "Kevin and I talked about it, and we agreed that it's not safe for you to be living alone anymore. You're almost 70. What if something happened? So we moved my parents in to help take care of the house." "And you?" "Moved them in," I repeated. "The bedroom upstairs, the one with all the fabric and stuff. We cleared it out so they'd have space. Mom has a bad hip, so she needs a room on the main floor, but we'll figure something out. The bedroom upstairs. Helen's sewing room." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Where's Helen's things?" I asked quietly. Brianna waved her hand. "We donated most of it. The quilts, the fabric, the sewing machine. You weren't using any of it, and the room was just collecting dust. It's better this way. Mom needed the space for her medical equipment." I looked past her to the woman at my table, her mother, eating off Helen's china like it was disposable dishware from Costco. "Where is Kevin?" "At work. But he totally supports this. We're doing this for you, Dad. You'll thank us, eventually." I felt something cold settle in my chest, a clarity that cut through the shock and the anger. I looked at Brianna, at her practiced smile and her calculating eyes, and I understood exactly what was happening here. "I want you all out of my house," I said. Brianna's smile flickered, but didn't fade. "Dad, don't be dramatic. We've been living here for almost 3 weeks. We've established residency. You can't just kick us out. This is my house. And we're family now. Or we will be, once Kevin and I get married. We're just looking out for you." Her mother spoke up from the table. "Brianna told us you might react this way. It's hard accepting help when you've been independent your whole life. But you'll adjust." I looked at this stranger sitting in my kitchen, eating my food, sleeping in the room where my wife used to create beautiful things with her own 2 hands. And I felt a rage so pure and so controlled that it scared even me. "Get out," I said. "We're not going anywhere." Brianna crossed her arms. "We have rights." Rights. There was that word again. The word that told me everything I needed to know about how long she'd been planning this. I turned around and walked out of my own house without another word. I could hear Brianna calling after me, her voice sweet and condescending, saying something about how I'd feel differently after I calmed down. I got in my truck and drove away, but I wasn't running. I was strategizing. I checked into a hotel near Old Town Scottsdale and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from fury. And beneath the fury, a deep, aching grief. They'd thrown away Helen's quilts, her fabric, the sewing machine her mother had given her as a wedding gift 50 years ago. Gone. Donated like garbage. But grief wouldn't get my house back. Action would. I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. The first was to my old friend, Danny Martinez. We'd gone through the fire academy together back in 1985. He'd left the department after 15 years to go to law school, and now he ran a successful practice in Phoenix, specializing in real estate and elder law. We still had dinner together once a month, trading stories about the old days. "Danny, I need your help. It's urgent." I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Walter, this is textbook elder abuse, financial exploitation, unlawful occupation. They picked the wrong guy to mess with. I want them out, legally, completely. And I want them to understand what they've done. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? I'll clear my schedule." The second call was to my neighbor, Frank Bishop. Frank was 73, a retired detective from the Scottsdale Police Department. We'd been neighbors for 18 years, ever since he and his wife moved in across the street. He kept an eye on things when I traveled. He also did private investigation work on the side to keep himself busy. "Frank, I need you to dig into someone for me. Brianna Walsh, 29, works in real estate. Her parents might be named Walsh too, from Nevada. I need to know everything about them." "What's going on, Walter?" I gave him the short version. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. "I'll start tonight. Give me 48 hours. The third call was to my daughter, Emily. She lived in Denver with her husband and 2 kids. We talked every Sunday, but this couldn't wait. "Dad, what's wrong?" The concern in her voice nearly broke me. I told her the whole story. When I finished, she was breathing hard. That manipulative little, "Dad, I'm getting on a plane. I'll be there tomorrow." You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Mom would have been on the first flight, and so am I. No one does this to my father, and no one throws away Mom's things like they're trash." After I hung up, I did something I probably should have done the moment I got home. I logged into the app for my security cameras. Helen had insisted we install them 3 years before she passed. A series of break-ins in the neighborhood had spooked her, so we put cameras on the front door, back door, and in the main living areas. I'd kept the system running even after she died. Force of habit. Now I was grateful for it. I scrolled back through the footage, starting from the day after I left for Ohio. Day 2. Kevin and Brianna arrive with suitcases. They're smiling, laughing. Brianna walks through the house, pointing at things, making notes on her phone. Day 5. A moving truck pulls up. Brianna's parents get out of the silver sedan. They start bringing in furniture. My recliner gets moved. The sofa appears. Day 8. Brianna carries boxes down from upstairs. Helen's fabric, her quilts. She loads them into the back of her BMW. The sewing machine follows on day 9. Day 12. Brianna's mother is rearranging my kitchen, putting my dishes in different cabinets, hanging a decorative sign that says, "Gather over the sink." Day 15. Kevin visits. He and Brianna have an argument in the living room. The audio isn't great, but I can make out Brianna saying something like, "He's old, he'll get used to it," and Kevin responding with, "I don't know about this." Then she touches his face, kisses him, and whatever resistance he had melts away. I watched 3 weeks of my home being dismantled and reassembled by strangers. 3 weeks of my late wife's memory being erased, and I saved every minute of it to a backup drive. Emily arrived the next morning. She walked into my hotel room, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. "We're going to fix this, Dad." "I know we are." We went to Danny's office together. He'd already drafted emergency paperwork, a petition for an unlawful detainer, a motion for immediate eviction based on the circumstances, and documentation of potential elder abuse. He'd also done some preliminary research on Brianna Walsh. "Your neighbor Frank called me this morning," Danny said. "He found something. Brianna's maiden name is Walsh, but she was briefly married 5 years ago. Different last name for about 18 months. And during that time, she lived with her husband and his elderly mother in Henderson, Nevada. Let me guess, Emily said. She tried something similar. The mother-in-law owned a house worth about $400,000. Brianna convinced her husband that Grandma needed live-in care. They moved in, started making changes, talking about power of attorney. The grandmother's daughter got suspicious and hired a lawyer. Brianna and her husband split up about 3 months later, right when the legal pressure started. No charges filed because the grandmother refused to cooperate. She's done this before, I said quietly. It gets better. Or worse, depending on how you look at it. Frank found 2 other situations where Brianna's parents lived with elderly homeowners, one in Reno, one in Tucson. Both times, they moved in as caregivers or family helpers. Both times, they left under suspicious circumstances within a year. No criminal charges, but there are civil complaints on file. Emily shook her head. It's a pattern. They target vulnerable seniors. They target lonely seniors, Danny corrected. People who might be grateful for the company. People whose families might not be paying close attention. They picked the wrong family this time. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. Fastest Danny could get it on the docket, given the circumstances. He advised me not to go back to the house until we had a court order in hand. Let them get comfortable, he said. Let them think they've won. It'll make the fall that much harder. Saturday afternoon, Kevin called me. Dad, where are you? Brianna said you left yesterday and haven't come back. She's worried. She's worried I might do something about the 3 strangers living in my house. Dad, come on. They're not strangers. They're going to be family. And we're doing this because we care about you. Kevin, did you know about this before I left for Ohio? Did you know Brianna was planning to move her parents into my home? Silence on the other end. Kevin, she said it would be easier this way, that you'd resist if we asked permission first. But once you saw how well it worked, you'd come around. She said you were lonely, Dad. She said you needed people around. And throwing away your mother's quilts? Her sewing machine? Was that part of making me less lonely? More silence. When he spoke again, his voice was small. I didn't know she was going to do that. I swear. I thought they were just going to use the room, not. I'm sorry, Dad. Sorry doesn't bring back your mother's things, Kevin. Sorry doesn't undo weeks of strangers going through my belongings, rearranging my home, treating me like I'm some confused old man who doesn't know what's good for him. What are you going to do? I'm going to take my house back. And you need to decide whose side you're on. I hung up before he could answer. Monday morning, I put on the suit I'd worn to Helen's funeral. Emily straightened my tie in the hotel mirror. You ready? She asked. I've been ready since Friday. The courtroom was small and functional. Maricopa County Superior Court, the kind of room where people's lives get decided in 90-minute increments. Danny was already there with a stack of documents. Brianna sat on the other side with a lawyer she'd somehow found over the weekend. Her parents weren't there, probably still at my house, eating my food. Kevin was there too. He sat in the back row, looking like he hadn't slept in days. When our eyes met, he looked away. Danny presented our case methodically. The timeline, the security camera footage, the donated property, the changed locks, Brianna's documented history of similar situations, the civil complaints from Reno and Tucson. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s named Patricia Hawkins, watched the security footage on a laptop. Her expression didn't change as she saw Brianna's mother rearranging my kitchen, as she watched them carry Helen's quilts out to the car. Miss Walsh, the judge said, turning to Brianna, can you explain why you moved your parents into Mr. Brennan's home without his knowledge or consent? Brianna put on her most sincere face. Your Honor, we were concerned about Walter's well-being. He's nearly 70, living alone in a large house. We were just trying to help. By disposing of his late wife's belongings? Those were being stored in a room we needed. We thought we were doing him a favor by decluttering. And the furniture changes? The removal of family photographs? Just making the space more comfortable for everyone. Judge Hawkins looked at her for a long moment. Miss Walsh, Are you aware that I have records of 2 civil complaints filed against your parents in other states? Complaints alleging similar patterns of behavior? Brianna's composure cracked. Her lawyer leaned over to whisper something, but she pushed him away. Those were misunderstandings. We were helping those people too. That's not what I asked. I asked if you were aware of the complaints. Silence. The judge turned back to Danny. Counselor, what is your client seeking? Immediate removal of all unauthorized occupants. A restraining order preventing Miss Walsh and her parents from approaching Mr. Brennan or his property. Recovery of damages for destroyed and disposed property. And referral to the county prosecutor's office for investigation of potential elder abuse charges. Judge Hawkins nodded. I've seen enough. Miss Walsh, Mr. and Mrs. Walsh are hereby ordered to vacate the property at the address in question within 72 hours. Any remaining personal property not removed by that time will be considered abandoned. Mr. Brennan is granted a temporary restraining order against all 3 individuals, effective immediately. I'm also referring this matter to the prosecutor's office for review. She looked at Brianna over her reading glasses. Miss Walsh, I've been on this bench for 22 years. I've seen a lot of people try to take advantage of seniors in this state. Most of them thought they were too clever to get caught. They were wrong. You might want to reconsider your life choices before you end up in front of me again under different circumstances. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Emily hugged me hard. Mom would be so proud of you. Danny shook my hand. I'll make sure the sheriff is there Wednesday, if they don't leave voluntarily. But my guess is they'll be gone by tomorrow. I saw Kevin walking toward us across the parking lot. He looked like a man whose whole world had just collapsed. Dad, I need to talk to you. Emily stepped forward. Haven't you done enough? It's okay. I put my hand on her shoulder. Give us a minute. She reluctantly walked toward the car with Danny. Kevin stopped a few feet away from me, hands in his pockets, unable to meet my eyes. I didn't know, he said. I swear to God, Dad, I didn't know about the other families. I didn't know she'd done this before. She told me we were helping you. She said you were depressed, that you needed family around, that once you got used to it, you'd be grateful. And you believed her. I loved her. I thought she loved me too. I thought she was looking out for both of us. Kevin, did you help them throw away your mother's things? He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. No, I didn't know about that until after. When I found out, I confronted her. She said they were just old junk, that you needed to move on, that keeping all that stuff wasn't healthy. I should have done something. I know that. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised, the man he'd become. He was weak in ways that frustrated me. But he was also the only son I had. The engagement, I said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. The diamond caught the Arizona sunlight. I told her last night, after you and I talked. She screamed at me for an hour, called me every name in the book, said I was choosing you over her. I said yes, I was. He held the ring out like he wanted me to take it. I don't want that, I said. Sell it. Pay off whatever debt she convinced you to take on. Start over. Can you ever forgive me? That was the question, wasn't it? The same question I'd been asking myself for days. I don't know, Kevin. Not yet. What you allowed to happen. What they did to your mother's memory. That's going to take time. A lot of time. I understand. But you're still my son. And I'm not going to cut you out of my life. I'm just going to need space. And you're going to need to earn back my trust. That's not something that happens with an apology. It happens with actions. Consistent actions over time. He nodded, wiping his eyes. I'll do whatever it takes. Start by getting your life in order. Find out who Kevin Brennan is without someone else pulling his strings. That's what your mother would have wanted for you. He reached out like he wanted to hug me, then stopped himself. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. That's why this hurts so much. Wednesday morning, Frank and I sat in his truck across the street from my house. The sheriff's deputy was parked in my driveway, and Emily was inside documenting everything. At exactly 9 o'clock, Brianna's father came out the front door carrying a suitcase. Her mother followed with 2 shopping bags, They loaded up the silver sedan without looking at anyone. Brianna came out last, her face set in a mask of barely contained rage. She walked over to the sheriff's deputy and said something I couldn't hear. He shook his head and pointed at the street. She got in her BMW and peeled out of my driveway, tires squealing. "Well," Frank said, "that's that." "Not quite," I replied. "But it's a start." That afternoon, Emily and I walked through the house together. She'd already begun cataloging what was damaged, what was missing, what could be repaired. The list was long. We went upstairs to Helen's sewing room. It was empty now, except for a few boxes shoved in the corner. The walls had been painted beige over the soft yellow Helen had chosen. Her curtains were gone. The room smelled like someone else's perfume. Emily stood in the doorway, crying silently. "I can't believe they just threw it all away. The quilts she made for you and Kevin when you were babies. The one she was making for your kids. All of it. We'll never get those back." "No, we won't." I put my arm around my daughter, and we stood there together in the empty room where my wife used to create beautiful things. Over the next month, I reclaimed my house piece by piece. I painted the sewing room back to yellow myself, even though my knees complained the whole time. I found a quilting group in Scottsdale, and some of the members had known Helen. They helped me understand what fabrics she might have liked, what patterns were similar to her style. I couldn't replace what was lost, but I could honor her memory by filling that room with possibility again. Frank called me 6 weeks after the hearing. "Thought you'd want to know. Brianna's already moved on. She's living with a widower in Flagstaff, 74 years old, owns a cabin, and about 30 acres of land." "Did you warn him?" "Tried. His daughter hired me to do a background check after Brianna moved in. When I told her what I found, she confronted her father. He didn't want to hear it. Said Brianna was different, that she really loved him. Some people have to learn the hard way. Unfortunately, Kevin called me every Sunday. Short conversations at first, awkward and stilted, but over time, they got easier. He'd found a therapist who was helping him understand why he'd been so susceptible to someone like Brianna. He was working extra shifts, paying off the credit card debt she'd encouraged him to take on. He was trying. On Christmas Eve, he came to my house for dinner. Just the two of us. Emily and her family had come for Thanksgiving, and they'd be back for New Year's. But Christmas Eve had always been for immediate family. We sat at the kitchen table, eating the ham I'd made using Helen's recipe, the one she'd taught Kevin to make when he was 12. "This is good, Dad. Your mother's recipe." "I know." He was quiet for a moment. "I still think about her quilts, the one she made for my wedding someday. It was going to have pieces of fabric from all the important moments in my life. Baby clothes, school uniforms, that ridiculous Hawaiian shirt I wore to prom. She'd been working on it for years." "I know. And I let them throw it away." "You didn't let them do anything. You were deceived by someone who made a career out of deceiving people. That doesn't excuse everything, but it explains some of it." He looked at me. "How can you not hate me?" "Because you're my son. Because your mother loved you more than anything in this world. And because hate is exhausting, Kevin. I'd rather spend my energy on the people and things that matter. I want to be someone Mom would be proud of. I want to be someone you can trust again. Then keep working at it. Every day. Trust isn't rebuilt with big gestures. It's rebuilt with consistency, with showing up, with being the person you say you're going to be." He nodded. "I will." After he left that night, I sat on my back patio with a glass of bourbon. The desert sky was clear, stars scattered across it like diamonds on black velvet. The mountains were silhouettes against the horizon. Helen had loved this view. We'd sit out here together almost every evening, talking about nothing, watching the sun go down. I thought about Brianna, out there somewhere, probably running the same scam on another lonely old man. I thought about her parents, enablers who'd made a lifestyle out of exploiting people's trust. I thought about all the seniors out there who might not have a Danny Martinez or a Frank Bishop or an Emily to help them fight back. I thought about what might have happened if I hadn't installed those cameras, if I hadn't kept the footage, if I'd been just a little bit more isolated, a little bit more willing to accept help from people who meant me harm. Then I thought about Helen, about her strength, her wisdom, Her unfailing belief that people should be treated with dignity and respect. She would have handled this differently. More gracefully, probably. But she would have handled it. And maybe that's the lesson in all of this. You're never too old to stand your ground. Never too old to fight for what's yours. Never too old to remind people that age doesn't equal weakness. Sometimes it equals wisdom, sometimes it equals patience, and sometimes it equals a 68-year-old retired firefighter with good lawyers, good friends, and a very long memory. My phone buzzed. A text from Kevin. "Thanks for dinner, Dad. Thanks for giving me another chance. I won't let you down again." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "I know you won't. Merry Christmas, son." I finished my bourbon and went inside, locking the door behind me. The house settled around me, familiar creaks and sighs. In the morning, I'd have coffee by the window. I'd work on that yellow room upstairs. I'd live my life in the home I'd built, the home I'd fought for. They tried to take it from me. They failed. And in the end, that failure taught us all something valuable. Family isn't about who shares your blood or your house. It's about who shows up when things get hard. It's about who fights for you and who fights alongside you. The people who tried to destroy my life are gone now. The people who matter are still here. And this old man isn't going anywhere.